I'd just like to start off by, I'll give you guys the facts of the journey, right? And that's the Googleable stuff, and I'll run through it quite quickly because I don't think that's the most important part of what I'm going to talk to you guys about. And the reason I say that is everyone's journey is so unique to the individual, and it's just steps. I think the most important thing that I can really deliver to you guys is the backstory and the why and the drive and the reasons that this path has happened behind that. So Knox is a 30-year-old. I just turned 30. MD of Zonrisk. That's still just surreal to say. But I'm a young woman. I'm from KZN. I'm from a rural town in KZN, and that's actually where I am today because I'm visiting my parents. Went to varsity straight after school, got a scholarship to go to varsity because, the family really couldn't afford to send me. So I got a scholarship to go to varsity. I flunked a subject in first year, and my scholarship was then revoked because the conditions of the scholarship were that I needed to pass everything. So now I've passed, but I've flunked economics one. Put your hand up if you've ever struggled with ecos. So now here I am, I'm without a scholarship. I now need to pay these funds back. And I think that's probably the beginning of what I would call the drive and the fire, right? Because that's the first time you have a challenge that asks of you, are you going to keep going or are you going to give up? So I now drop out of varsity. So I was a varsity dropout in second year, and I have to decide what to do. And I know that I can't go back to rural KZN because there's absolutely nothing there for me, right? And I don't have the language for it, but I just know that I have to keep going. Now I can use words like resilience, ambition, and all of that. But I then stick around in Joburg, have a really tough time. I'm squatting on friends' couches and all of that. I now owe Vids money for my first year and my second year of studies because I had to talk to them to get me back into second year. So get back into second year, but I can't now pay for second year. So they asked me to drop out. So financial exclusion was my story. And I'm extremely bright and gifted, always have been. And now there's the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment. And, you're young, you're 18 years old, and you were one of the brightest kids in school. And now, you sort of like this varsity flunk out. So that's the backstory. That's where I come from. And that's actually how I entered the insurance industry. So now I can't go back home. I'm couch surfing and I need to make a living somehow. And I just know that I want to get back to school. So I try every kind of job imaginable. I try waitressing. I'm extremely clumsy and it doesn't work out. And eventually I get a learnership, right? I don't know what a learnership is. And it's in the insurance industry. I don't know what insurance is, but I just need a gig. And that was the first, my first foray into insurance. So I get into a Santam learnership. And I'm sure you guys all know what a learnership is. So I don't need to go into what that is. So now I'm on this learnership, and the one thing that I've always had is deep curiosity, right? I've always just wanted to learn about things. And so I wasn't scared by not knowing what insurance was. I threw myself in it and I took it as an opportunity to learn. So I absolutely thrive. I do really well. But guys, and I have to say, the beginning is menial, right? It's menial. The job was literally data capturing. This is when most companies were moving from paperless or were moving towards paperless systems. So now I'm here doing this menial work of just making sure that papers match what's on a computer, right? It's not glamorous. And it's certainly not the dream you have when you leave high school and you go to varsity. And there's a lesson in there that I'm going to talk much more in depth about a bit later. So that happens, and I do this job, and I make a decision to not complain about it, take it as an opportunity to learn because this is something I've never done before, right? So it's new, and there's a lesson in absolutely everything. So I throw myself into this job. I do really well, and the result of that is that I get headhunted. I don't know what headhunting was back then, but I can use that word now. So I get headhunted by my next firm, Mirabilis, who are the biggest engineering underwriters on the African continent, right? So they call. Is there a way to switch the messages off? Because it's gonna keep distracting me. I've got ADD, so I don't know if anyone can sort of answer that for me.
Yes, we can.
Sure. How do I? No, don't turn them off. Just I just don't want them popping up. So I don't know if it's a setting on my side.
I think we'll hold our comments till the end.
No. Okay. All right. Thanks. That would help. That's another challenge, guys. I've got ADD, so I struggle to focus. But getting back to it, so I take the decision, and that's exactly what it is, right? It's a decision that you have to make for yourself, because I'm in this environment, so everyone's complaining. The hours are long, the job is boring, we're all bored out of our skulls, and the boss wasn't wasn't the best. But you make the decision to learn, and that's when I get headhunted. So I get headhunted, and the role is possibly more. But oh gosh, did we lose me? Hi, am I back?
We can still hear you, but I think the camera is like a bit lagged. It's lagging a bit.
Anyone just wave if you can hear me?
Can you hear us, Nox?
Okay, thanks, Kirshen. I saw the hand. Okay, perfect. So I do think I'm back. All right, cool. So I'm there as an administrator, and probably, just on the same level, job level wise as the receptionist. They just needed someone to do all the admin of their renewals.
Okay, guys, I think we lost connection there.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Nox. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, drop off. I'm gonna switch my camera back on. Okay, what's the last thing you guys heard, Caitlin, just so I can pick up from there?
You were a receptionist at that.
Oh, okay. So I was on the same job level as probably the receptionist. And once again, it's a decision that you have to make to say, I am gifted and I will not be, this is not where my story ends. So once again, I see this as an opportunity to learn. It's a new area. I know nothing about it. And I've just, like I said, I have that deep curiosity that's always driven me. So there I am, just working long hours, long after what my job spec says. I'm there reading policy wordings. I'm there reading every single book on engineering insurance that I can find. And they had these, like, those thick books that lawyers have in their bookshelves. We had similar ones in the office. And I was poring over those, just trying to get a sense of what this job and this company was about and how I could add value. I think that's another differentiator about me. I always want to enter a space and make sure that I add to it. And within 3 months, I had learned so much. I had developed systems to sort of automate, I can use that word now, automate the renewals process that I've been called to do. So I wasn't doing as much work and I was sitting there bored and just reading most of the time. And my boss at the time called me into the office, and this is 3 months into the job, and she says, I'm going to lose you because you're bored out of your skull. And I think you should go to the MD's office. I am terrified. I'm 21 years old with a year's job experience from the learnership, and I'm being called into the MD's office. And I get there and he says to me, I hear you've done really well and you're bored. Now that's a trick question, right? How do you tell the MD that you're bored? And I say, I've had an interesting couple of months, but I would like new challenges. And he says, okay, what would you like to do? And that's such an important pivotal moment in my life, because I've always gone back to that moment. When you're asked what you want to do, are you honest? And do you spell out your wildest dreams, or do you hold back and sort of give people the answer that they're looking for, which is more in line with? And I've always just like shot for the stars. That's one thing about me. I'm like, if you're gonna ask me whether I want a blue car or a red car, I'm gonna tell you I want a rocket to go to the moon. That's just who I am. So I say, I theoretically get what we're doing here. And now this is me just ingratiating myself into ingraining myself into the company. I get what we're trying to do here. And I think I really want to join those guys. And I point to the sales departments. And these are the guys who would walk into the office, high five each other. Hey, we just wrote a 2 million rand deal. And I was like, I want to be those guys. They look really cool. So I say that's where I want to be. And he doesn't give it to me. He says, that's not what you're going to get from me. And he's got the straightest face. And there's like an awkward pause and silence. And I'm like, did I just mess up my job? Am I about to get fired? Did I do too much? And he says, what I'm going to do is give you an opportunity to really get to grips with what we do here. And I'm going to send you to the most unglamorous place so you can learn. You can say yes or you can say no. And he hasn't told me what that is. He's just told me that that's what the role is going to entail. And I say, I just heard learn, and I was like, I'm game. And he says, claims is at the crux of everything that we do as an industry. And that's where I'm going to send you. So I go to the claims department. And honestly, that's where like the light bulb moment happened, right? So I'm working there and it's stimulating and all of those good things. But what shifted for me then, and I think that's where I began to tap into my purpose. And that's why I wanted to tell you guys this backstory so you could understand this moment. What shifted for me then is I began to understand insurance, not just as a job, that I come to, but as a mechanism that really affects people's lives, right? Like we're there for people when disaster strikes. We're that last line of defense. And you guys contributing skills to the industry is adding value to it in your own way. But as an industry, that's really what we're there to do. We're a safety net, a financial safety net for the country, if you may. And I figured that out because I was dealing with people on the life end of the claims that we're sorting out. So what I mean by that is it stops just being a job where you get a claim and you have to reject or pay it out. And you realize that, oh, this is Mr. Joe Soap who took his life savings, bought an item of plant. I was in the construction industry, an item of plant, uses life savings for that. And that's how he now makes a living. And when we write off that item or we say that there's no cover, he's now lost his life savings and he has no way of getting back onto his feet financially. And the story that I just told is actually a real story that happened. And I had a client crying on the phone with me for an hour after, I think it was after 7 p.m. I was the only person in the office. But for the sake of time, I won't run into that story. But that's really where the moment for me came to say, this is not just a 9 to 5. This is not something that I come and do and I can leave. This is a life-changing mechanism and more people need to know about this. And the reason I say more people need to know about it is I come from a rural environment where the general consensus or perception of insurance is salespeople, funeral insurance, scams, we collect premiums we don't want to pay, right? So that's where the journey sort of starts to pivot for me. I move on and I eventually, you guys will be happy to know, join the high fivers and the guys who make the multi-million rand deals, and I joined the sales division. And the reason I did that was really, I was like, being on the back end is great because you understand, but when you're on the front end, you're able to influence decisions more. You're able to actually impart the knowledge that's going to help people to take out the right sort of policies that they need. And in the specialist sector, there's a high skills shortage. I'm sure, once again, that you guys are highly aware of that. So now I'm there, I'm doing the high five, and I'm loving it. I'm really thriving. And sorry, I'm really thriving. And then I enter the Insurance Apprentice, and I didn't want to. And there's another lesson that I want to impart. I was there, I was very comfortable. I was aware of the Insurance Apprentice. I was a fan. And one day my MD comes to me and says, entries are open for this year. I think you should enter. So now when your MD says that, you're not saying no. But I'm there going, I am not ready. That thing is hectic. Right? I'm like, I can't do this. So now I'm like between a rock and a hard place. And once again, it goes back to when you're faced with an option, what do you decide to do? Do you decide to rise up, which is the more challenging thing to do? Or do you retreat back into your comfort, your corner? And I was doing well in sales, but I was comfortable, really. And I was happy being there because I was so good at it. And now here's this new thing that people are throwing at you. And I was pushed into that. I really didn't want to. The only reason I entered that show was because my MD said so. So, question, that's how you get your guys to do things. Just tell them. So I entered the show, and I don't know if you guys are aware of the show, but I'll just run through what it quickly is. So it's premised on the actual Apprentice with Donald Trump, and with an insurance twist, obviously. And it's 8 contestants at the time. It was 8. It's now 10. It's 8 contestants. They throw a bunch of challenges at you, and it's real life topical challenges that the industry is grappling with. So there's a different sponsor, which is a different insurance company, and every episode they throw these challenges at you, and you're supposed to come up with a solution to a challenge that a big company like Marsh, Hollard is dealing with. And they give you 3 hours to do it. No big deal. They've just been, dealing with it for like the last 3 years, but they give you 3 hours to come up with a solution. And it's filmed, it's broadcast to the entire industry and wider. So when you mess up on a very royal scale, right? And there's cameras, and you're just aware that there's never an alone moment and there's never a private moment. And if you do mess up, it'll be on the grandest of scales. And as a former perfectionist, this shook me, because how do you make a mistake in public? Until you realize that the lesson is the game is in actually trying and putting yourself out there, right? It's not in how you actually do. The real lesson and the real character building is, do you have the courage to show up, to be vulnerable, to be courageous, to be brave, and to step up and to do the things that others don't? And that's what I got from that part of my journey. So I entered The Apprentice, and I had to grapple with everything that I just said to you: the courage, the decision to either step up or step out. Every single episode, I tell you guys, and I've probably never shared this, I had a panic attack before every single scene. Like before they said, okay, rolling, go, I'm there just hyperventilating, breathing into a bag. And as soon as you walk on stage, you're like, okay, cool, game face. And life will throw those moments at you. It's not this pretty polished journey that promises that everything will be fine and everything will be hunky-dory and everything will be as you visualize. When you visualize and you imagine the happy moments and you imagine the glory, few of us actually visualize the hard work and the grind and the moments of having to be courageous and the moments of having to step up. And you have to do that because that's an irremovable part of the journey. So that's another just nuggets that I have to share with you guys on that part. And I went on and I consciously made that decision to, I'm terrified, I am scared, but I will go and I will do my best every single episode. And I showed up, and I mean, you guys heard my bio, I won. So yeah, and it was such a surreal moment for me. And the reason it was, and the reason I shared that story about coaching in the beginning, is after going through the journey, you realize that it's less about the outcome, but actually the growth that you undertake as you go along the journey. So you almost divorce yourself from the outcome. And yes, I entered to win, but then at the end, it really became about the knocks that grew, the knocks that came into it, the knocks that overcame the fear, the panic attacks, the anxiety, and the knocks that consciously decided to show up every single part of that journey. All right, so I win The Apprentice, and it's incredible. But the incredible part is the exposure that then comes out of it, because now you're asking yourself, what's the next challenge? And the challenge that came out of that was I got exposed to a fantastic program initiated by the United Nations, and they call it the Principles for Sustainable Insurance. And what that is it looks at how we as a risk industry can deploy our resources, our knowledge, our skills in a more impactful way to actually solve societal problems. So one of the problems that I was then exposed to on that journey with the United Nations was the concept of the insurance protection gap, right? And that's what I actually now have decided is my why. That's what I'm solving for in my journey in my career. So it's the concept that certain people have insurance and others don't. I'm disappearing. So we have folks that have insurance, we have folks that don't. And the nature of risk is that it doesn't discriminate. So the folks that have insurance, risk happens and their life keeps going because the insurance mechanism steps in to protect them and their assets, and life keeps going for them with minimal impact. The folks that don't have insurance actually move backwards financially. They suffer losses economically that they cannot recover from because they haven't put in place the necessary protections to make sure that their finances, their assets are actually protected. So in a country like ours, where we have one of the highest inequality gaps in the world, I think our Gini coefficient is the second highest after Swaziland. I stand to be corrected. This situation where you have risk happening, some people are protected, some aren't, and this keeps happening, means that our inequality gap is actually becoming wider. And that's something that we as an industry can directly impact. So now this is fascinating to me. I've always known that we're important, but I didn't realize that we're this important and we can actually help society in a bigger way than what we're currently doing. Now, when you go deeper into that, it becomes more personal. For me, being from a rural area and knowing that there's such misconceptions and lack of understanding and awareness about insurance, that most of the people that don't have insurance are people from my background, my demographics, Black people mostly. And it became a very personal issue for me to try and solve and to use my journey and the skills and knowledge that I'd gained in order to assist, these people. So now I'm here, I'm in this very cushy job. I'm exposed to these skills. I'm going to these very prestigious programs. And I go, what is all of this for if we don't actually help the people who need the help? And I don't want to be the person to do it. I will be honest here today with you. I don't want to be the person to have to step up, right? I then went and looked around and I said, well, if this is such a big problem, who's solving it? And yes, it's great to have think tanks and have conferences and to talk about the problem, but we're sitting in our fancy offices in Sandton talking about the fact that the inequality gap for the poorest of the poor in this country keeps widening and we're not doing anything about it. So this really bothers me, and I'm like a dog with a bone when I have a problem. I just literally can't let it go. So now I go around and I'm making noise. I'm like, what does this mean? What are we doing as an industry? Ever the idealist. And because of my exposure in the insurance apprentice, I'm now exposed to levels of influence, and I'm literally just talking people's ears off. And I'm saying, listen, this is something that we have to solve. And then someone says to me, why don't you do it? Right? And therein is another moment where it's like, okay, I've been looking for someone else to do it. And now they're saying, but why aren't you stepping up and doing it? And you really have those moments in your career, in your life, where you have the option, once again, and this is a recurring theme in my life, to either step back, and let things continue and let other people solve the problem and make noise, right? And we see it on Twitter with a lot of keyboard warriors. It's easy to make the noise and get things trending. But the brave ones, the courageous ones, the game changers, the trailblazers, the difference makers are the ones to step up and say, okay, I will do something about it, and actually see that through. And it's difficult, and you don't quite know how you're going to do it when you make the decision, but you have faith and hope in the reality that is different from the current status quo. And I really saw a reality where the poorest of the poor are protected, insurance is disseminated to a wider sector of the population, and we get the right information out there. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And it took that question to really jar me into, okay, I'm actually being part of the problem by talking about it and not doing anything about it. And I have to decide to do something about it. And once that decision happened, and it's a crazy thing, and I could go into like the spiritual elements of my belief about the universe, but things really do start to align. And because of that, you shift your focus, and I think you start to focus on solutions rather than just making noise. And because of that, I then started to meet people who believed in the same thing and who were talking the same language that I was, which is how I actually stumbled into the people who would then back me and give me the money to start my brokerage. And their idea was, listen, you want to do this. We have the resources, and that's another thing. There's always people who want to help you. You just have to get started on the journey yourself. You have to be a self-starter. You have to initiate. The help doesn't come to you. You get started and it reaches you on the way, and it always reaches you on the way. It may take a while, but it does come. So these guys said, okay, why don't you start a brokerage? Because that's going to afford you the proximity to clients within the regulatory framework to actually reach clients, be able to disseminate risk advice, and you can actually drive impact in the way that you want to by being the partner that people can rely on to actually help them protect their assets. So a part of the journey that I probably skipped, and I'm looking at my notes now, is as I was working, I actually did go back to school. I finished my degree, so I'm no longer a dropout, everyone. So I did graduate. And when I was doing my honors studies, I actually did it on the risk or the lack of risk advice in SMEs. And that's where the problem statement for Zonrisk comes from. When you look at the insurance protection gap and then you apply to SMEs, SMEs are literally the backbone of this country's economy, and they got a business at alarming rates. And the reasons that are typically given are that they are underfinanced, they have lack of resources, lack of business management skills, lack of access to markets. And I found in my research that a hugely overlooked reason is the fact that they're just poorly resilient to risk, right? A lot of them don't take insurance. A lot of them don't take the correct insurance. If they do take out insurance, with disastrous effects on their businesses. And these are emerging businesses, these are startups. This is where the jobs of this country actually come from. And if you followed what economically happened during lockdown, and even before, big businesses was already folding. It's the small guys that we really, really rely on to keep the economy going and give the jobs to actually solve the economic crisis that we face in this country. So when I realized this, and I put these things together, the idea was the birth of Zonrisk, starting a brokerage that would focus on SMEs with the core impact of making sure that diversity is at the core. And what I mean about diversity is our industry looks a certain way. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritties of what that is. And the importance of diversity is that it introduces diverse thoughts. I'm so sorry, everyone. It introduces diverse thoughts, diverse ideas, diverse innovations, because it comes from people with a different paradigm than the people who currently make the decisions. So that's important if we're really going to get different ideas to solve the problems that we have instead of throwing the same solutions at the problem. So I'm very, very keen on diversity, and it's diversity on a racial level, diversity on a gender level, diversity on an age level, right? And that's where the youth empowerment aspect of what I'm passionate about comes from, because it's all good and well, and I hugely respect our elders because of the information and the insights that they can impart to us and the skills transfer that can happen. But we as the youth are not jaded yet, right? We don't come with the preconceptions that have been drummed into us over years and decades of being in the industry. We look at things differently. And that's the power that you guys all sit with, sitting here today. You come with huge value in the way that you think. And if we all raised our voices and really came to the fore with the ideas without fear, you know, there are some brilliant things that can come out. And if you think about what I said earlier about the fact that people are always there willing to help, and if you get started, that marriage between the older generation, our innovation, and that willingness to help and resource these ideas will change not just this industry, I think this country as a whole. We're missing young people who really have it in them to step up and think of their ideas as valuable. And then we're missing the crucial link from the older generation who can impart the skills, the knowledge, because, you know, there's always value in history, but most importantly, the resources to actually bring these ideas to life. And that's what I'm really, really passionate about changing through my company, ZonRisk. So that's where that diversity comes in. And the inclusion comes from the fact that, quite honestly, insurance is not disseminated on a wide enough level. It's not inclusive. The decision-making processes and structures are not inclusive, and we're not considering the people at the absolute bottom of the pyramid who need our services quite possibly the most. So that's what I'm solving for. That's what I aim to do. That is the journey that has brought me to this moment. And I think what I would like to end off with at the end is just to highlight that more than anything, it's an inside job. It's the inner work, and it's not the outside facts of the journey that matter so much as the changes in you, the quiet decisions that you have to make, and what step you choose when you're faced with, do I step up or do I fade into the background and, you know, let things continue as they are, even though I know that I've got a brilliant idea or a flicker of hope or an idea that something could be different. And if you just voice that, there's always someone who, you know, like, it'll find you, the thing that connects you to people who think like you, if you just talk about it long enough and you make sure that you actually follow that voice and you don't suppress it. So that's my journey of courage, of challenges, of hope, and I would like to hear questions before I bore you guys. So opening the floor. And not all at the same time, guys. Thank you. I see the comments coming through now.
Thank you, Knox. That was truly inspirational. Thank you for sharing your story. I have a few questions if no one wants to ask. So I'll ask a few questions. So one of my questions is, how did you motivate yourself when things were tough? You know, when you were having those panic attacks and stuff, how did you motivate yourself?
So I think the first thing that I'll say is I started an understanding that things will be difficult. And that's such an important part that a lot of people skip. We like to go for the motivation, we like to go for the rah-rahs, and you sort of forget that the journey does come with ups and downs, right? It's an inevitable part of it. So how I stayed motivated is right at the beginning. Whenever I undertake something, I go, okay, this is what I want. And it looks beautiful and I can see the glory, I can imagine it. But for me to get there, I absolutely have to know what it's going to take. And there will be difficult moments, and there will be moments that ask of me what I think is the impossible at that point in time. And I have to conquer that mentally before I even get there. So that by the time I get there, I recognize that, oh, this is just a dip in the journey, and this is not a sign that I should stop. This is a sign that I need to rise above this. And it's hard. Like, I'm saying it now as if it's an easy formula, but it's absolutely difficult because, you know, we're human beings and there's an emotional aspect to this. And it's, I can't keep going. I can't do this. This is too hard. And yes, it absolutely is, but you already know mentally that there will be times of hardness, right? There will be times of difficulty. And when you encounter them, you just go, oh, this is it. I will get there, but on the way to getting here, this is just a dip that I have to get through. So it's just a mental game that I use with myself to say, okay, cool, I'll get past this. It's going to be difficult, but I'll rise up. So that's how I stay motivated. And on a less fluffy level, there are a lot of resources that I then invest in, right? So I watch quite a lot of impact theory, and that's where I sort of got the language about how the brain works, how mental blockages work, how to get past them. So Tom Bilyeu is a brilliant guy in this field, if you're taking notes. So impact theory is an online resources that helps, and they go through various topics to really help you with making sure that you can actually get past the dips in your journey and achieve your goals. And it's reading content such as Brene Brown that tells you that you have to be resilient and courageous, and those are the strengths and the qualities of the people who actually make it. Yeah, I think Brene Brown and Tom Bilyeu have been absolutely instrumental in terms of providing me with the resources. Grit by Angela Duckworth is also a very important book that I've read, and then concepts that I follow in order to assist me.
If no one has any other questions, I'll ask the second one that I have. So what were the two most important lessons that you learned in your journey?
Okay. The first is no one is an island, right? And what I mean by that is, and as much as I talk about young people having all this brilliance, we have a fallacy in that we sometimes think we can go it alone. And you realize, and this is something I realized in my business journey, is you absolutely cannot do it without help. You cannot do it without reaching out to a community, a tribe of like-minded thinkers and the people who've gone before you. So it's absolutely critical to find that tribe and lean on them in the times when it gets tough for you. So that's a very important lesson. As just somebody who was like super independent and I can do it. You can, but it's much harder doing it on your own, and you don't have to. There is always a tribe that you can find to lean on to help you. What is the second part of that question?
It was two lessons from your journey.
The second lesson is no one can want it for you. No one can want it for you. Even the people with the most brilliant resources in front of them, if they don't want it, if they don't have that hunger, then there's nothing that you can do for them. It's an inside game more than anything else, and you have to really want it, and no one can want that for you. So you have to develop that within yourself.
Truly agree. My last question. If you could leave us with one piece of advice, what would that be?
Sure, just one.
Yeah, just one from the whole.
Always back yourself. There is immeasurable power in who you are, what your story is. It's unique to you, and you have to believe in that, and you have to believe in the greatness of the future that is coming, and you always have to back yourself. The world comes with challenges that are going to already break you down. Don't be another thing that breaks you down. Just get into your head that I'm going to forge forward, and I will be my number one fan. So always back yourself.
I love that one. I truly love that one. Grace, I see your hand is up.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Nox. I have one question. So if you were to go back, let's say you said you're 30, right? So if you were to go back 12 years from now, what would you say to yourself?
Wow, that's 18. Hated that age. Yeah, that is a nice one, Gracie. I would say to myself that you've got time, and the time will pass anyway. I think I spent a lot of time doubting and thinking about a lot of things and dreaming about a lot of things, but going, oh, that's going to take too much time, and you want the glory now, and you want. And it's even worse now because we're in this age of instant gratification. And getting out of your head and just getting to grips with the fact that the time will pass anyway. It's what you choose to do with that time. I would rather go for the small incremental building steps rather than just wanting to go for the big, grand, ha ha, hoo hoo. And that doesn't always materialize, and then you absolutely fall apart. So understand that you have the time and it will pass anyway. So just go ahead and do the things that you want to.
That's nice to hear. Thanks, Knox.
Sure.
Do we have any more questions? That was a brilliant one, Grace. Do you have any more? Ryan, I see your hand is up.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi Nox.
Hi.
I unfortunately missed majority of your journey, so apologies. But I'm looking forward to watching the recording. My question is just like I've heard your answers to the questions, and you're obviously a very successful young person. My question is just with entertainment. Do you find yourself struggling with setting boundaries? And if you had to like indulge in entertainment like a movie or whatever the case might be, do you rather put that away and maybe watch a podcast? I just want to know your thoughts around setting boundaries when it comes to me time and
Yeah.
how you work around that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a young mom. I'm a business owner. And until last year I was a student as well. So when I believe in play as much as hard work, right? And the reason you saw me laughing a little bit when you're asking your question is I can give you the textbook answer, but the truth is I struggle, as with any young person. I write too much on Twitter. I spend way too much on Twitter. Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can.
Knox, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, my screen just some
Knox, are you still with us? Um, I think we lost connection.
I think she's plugging in her laptop.
Could be, yeah. I will just give her a few minutes. Yeah, I think she just got disconnected.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to let you know that I have Knox on the line with me. Hold on a second. Knox, okay, you can say hi. Can everybody hear Knox?
Hi, I'm just connected. I put my laptop was connected. It turns out it's not on a power socket.
Shame, no problem. No problem. Caitlin, are you able to hear Knox okay?
Yeah, we can hear her perfectly. Thank
Perfect.
you.
All right. Knox, did you hear Ryan's question?
I did. Did you hear my answer?
Ryan?
Yes, we did. We heard like part of it, and then it got like sort of like it dropped off as she was saying that she does struggle with Twitter.
Oh yes. So I think it's most young people have struggled with too much time on social media. And just to try and help you, Ryan, because it doesn't help telling you that I just struggle. Boundaries is such a critical part of your journey and the journey to success, because you have to decide whether this assists or hampers what I'm trying to do, right? So absolutely, you you need downtime, you need playtime, and the way that I get around it is I actually then schedule time on social media, schedule time to go out with friends, and it seems boring, but it's absolutely been a productivity game changer, because when I have to work, I know that, okay, I've got a playtime coming later, and I can absolutely focus on getting that work and spinning it out. And when I play, like I said, I spend my prize money in the weekend, so I play hard too. So I think making sure that you have both of those in balance, if you have to schedule it, scheduling is my productivity hack. It makes a huge difference.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that, Knox.
Okay, sure.
Christina, I know you had your hand up.
I do have my hand up. So, Knox, my question to you is, who do you look up to as your mentor or as somebody that influences you, someone that you look up to?
I've thought about this question a lot, and there's no single source of inspiration. So I don't limit myself in terms of, where I look to for inspiration, because I always struggle with, do I just give the one person? There's so many sources of brilliance that I pull from. So Tom Billy is one, Brene Brown is one, Angela Duckworth is one, and then locally there's so many brilliant women in our industry doing amazingly. Thokozile Mahlangu, absolutely brilliant. I love Zay van der Merwe, CEO of Santam, because it absolutely shows me that, these things are possible, and I can map a path and I can access doing it. So I look everywhere for inspiration. I'll find a quote on Instagram or on the internet, and I'll meditate on it. I read quite a bit. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think there's just nuggets of inspiration and mapping out the journey and resources to help you along whatever you're trying to do everywhere around you. So I've never limited myself, and that's been a very conscious thing in terms of where I look to for inspiration and mentorship.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, Caitlin?
Oh, we have her back in the session. Yay! Glad to have you back. Does anyone else have any more questions? Because I'm out. I mean, I asked the most guys. Does anyone else?
Difficult questions.
Bushle, thank you. Can you come up and ask your question?
I think she might have answered this when she spoke about scheduling downtime. Hi, Knox. I just wanted to basically find out how you balance absolutely everything, because you said you're a young mom as well, right? So being a young mom and a successful trailblazer as well, how do you manage to do everything the way that you do it so seamlessly?
I just told this.
That
So that you would realize how unseamless and how disjointed and how tough it can be. But there's this incredible thing that happens when you're faced with everything that's on your plate. I don't think the start sounding like such a broken record, but you get on with it, right? The long and short of it is you have to get on with it. Scheduling is a way that I just make sure that, okay, I've got some me time. I've got time to study. I've got time to work on zone risk. I've got time to attend to my clients. And just doing the things that spark joy for you is a really good way to pour back and to reignite your energy. Energy is a big part of who I am. I get energy from various sources, and when you replenish and you do what brings you joy and you do the work that matters to you and your heart and your soul, I find that you really get fuel to keep going. I remind myself of my why a lot. And I do work that directly impacts people and helps them financially. So my job is a big satisfaction that helps me keep going. So to answer your question, I think in short is find something that matters more than just you, something outside of yourself that you can pour into, because then that then helps you and keeps you going and reminds you of your why when that going gets tough and when things get really, really, really difficult. So that's the piece of advice that I'd give you in terms of how to actually get to making sure that you have time for everything in your day and your path. Because you give things priority, right? And you give things priority, you give the things that matter priority. So you have to find the thing that matters. And that's what you will give your energy and your time and your life to. I get very little sleep though, Buhle, I will be honest.
I think that's something I can agree with, the little sleep. But thank you so much for your answer. I definitely will take some of those points and implement them in my life as well.
Sure. Glad to hear it.
Thank you, Bushle. Do we have any more questions?
This is such a fantastic audience. I wish I could live in the comment section. Thanks, guys. I can't hear you, but I'm reading.
I think everyone's out of questions. So thank you, Knox, for an amazing. It was truly amazing to hear your story. It was absolutely inspirational and truly encouraging. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. It was thought-provoking, encouraging, and truly inspirational. We hope to host you again in the future. We truly, it would be amazing. And thank you to all the gifters for making time to attend the session. I hope it has impacted you greatly. Also, gifters, please keep an eye on your emails because GIFS Youth Week is far from over. Thanks, everyone, and have an amazing day. Thank you again, Knox.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for your audience, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your youth week. The program looks fantastic, and I'm so honored to have been a part of it.
Thank you. It was an honor having you.
Thank you, Knox.
Ciao, everyone.